All right, friends, it is a super weird Week 8 preview here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Dan Besbris, and you can find me on social media at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. That's actually on Twitter. Old Man Squad is over on the new Blue Sky Network. Old Man Squad Fantasy on Instagram. The coming week is its own period on some websites and the second half of period 7 on Yahoo, but we're going to treat it as its own independent week, and it is unquestionably the strangest week of the NBA season. And that includes the first week of the year and the All-Star break, because this one has games that aren't even scheduled yet, and we are less than 24 hours. We're like 15 hours as of recording now away from the actual start of the week. And I guess a little over 24 hours from the actual only game of the week. The other thing that makes Week 8 hard, in addition to the fact that the schedule is extremely weird, is that you only have one game on Monday. And for weekly lock leagues, that means that you get almost no information at all about your players leading into the rest of the week. And for that matter, only 5 games between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday combined. So the vast majority of teams, 2/3 of the NBA, slightly more than that, in fact, doesn't even play until Thursday. So if you have players that are banged up, questionable type guys that don't go until Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of next week, you're not going to have any information on them unless we get some sort of good news today on Sunday when I'm recording the podcast. And there's still, the whole day's worth of Sunday games to work our way through. Please hit that like button as you're settling in. It actually does matter. And everybody that watches this video hitting the subscribe button, that also does matter. And if you're listening after the fact on iTunes or Spotify, please drop that 5-star review. First thing we're going to do on today's show, even before we get into our sponsor nods, is to look at some of the weekly decisions that folks have to make right now. And it's going to be really tough. And we're going to shy towards being extraordinarily cautious. We'll just start at the top of the board. We'll work our way through basically based on how valuable these players are. Victor Wembanyama is questionable for the Spurs game today, Sunday. So hopefully he'll get ruled in and then we won't have to worry about it. But the thing is, if he's questionable today and they don't play until Friday of next week, Spurs have a 2-game week. I'm starting Wemby. He's too good not to. Anthony Davis is a go. Karl Anthony Towns missed the Knicks last ball game, but they have a 3-game week coming up. So I'm definitely playing Cat, even off the missed ball game. Franz Wagner, of course, that was the big news of yesterday. He's out for a month or 2. You're not going that route. James Harden is questionable for Sunday, and the Clippers have a really bad schedule this coming week. So I'll say this. If it really ends up being like a game time call and he gets ruled out pretty close to tip, I would probably start him in a 1-game week. But again, bear in mind that the difference between a 1-game week and a 2-game week is the single largest gap that you can get from one additional game, because you only need half production from whoever you're dropping in. So if you have someone on your bench that does half of what James Harden does, then you can drop him in. You don't even have to worry about whether or not Harden is going to play next Friday. That said, I think he probably does play next Friday. So I would be inclined to probably start him, because still, I know that Harden is it's not a world beater, but 11 points, 3.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and game-breakingly good free throw and game-breakingly bad field goal percent and 1.5 threes. That's on the wire, but it's not everywhere on the wire. So think about it from that perspective. Once we get outside the top 25, 1-game weeks are probably not going to be enough. Jalen Johnson is questionable. Hawks play today, and then they have a 1-game week on Wednesday. If he gets ruled out on Sunday, I would not. Oh, I'm sorry. They got a 2-game week. Remember, they're in the NBA Cup. Hawks have a 2-gamer, so I would probably play Jalen Johnson next week, regardless of what happens today. There. See, I amended that one on the fly. LaMelo Ball is out until further notice, as is. Actually, we heard that Kevin Durant might be trying to get back as soon as today, which would surprise the hell out of me, but I guess you never know. I would think then that he feels confident he'll play on Friday and Sunday of next week. So I would actually probably start KD And that's one of the few risks that I'm willing to take this coming week. Giannis is probable, so we're not going to worry about that. Scrolling along to the next one. Freddie VanVleet, questionable for Houston on Sunday. Obviously, if he plays on Sunday, you don't have to worry about it. If he's out on Sunday, he only has, they're 2 days off, and then Wednesday. I was going to say only 2 days off between games, which is actually kind of a low number. But they're in the NBA Cup, so they'll have another game on either Saturday or Sunday. A 2-gamer for Houston, that's definitely enough for me to play VanVleet. Trae Young, I think he was probable last I checked, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Chris Middleton, you're not starting until his minutes ramp up. Tari Eason already ruled out, so you're going to bench him for this coming week also, just until we get them a good report there. LeBron James, I think he's going to be playing through stuff, and the Lakers have a 2-game week, so he is a go. Jamal Murray, I'm hoping that he was just out on the front end of a Denver back-to-back. So we'll see if he plays in Atlanta today on Sunday. If he doesn't, I would bench him because they only have a 1-game week, and 1 is barely enough for him, and 0 certainly wouldn't be at all. Guys, BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with the opportunity to watch the action as it happens. Pretty sweet stuff right there, actually. Don't you want to watch your bets as they're going? I would. Otherwise, you're just like checking later. What the hell's the fun in that? They got the largest selection of odds on everything from football to the NBA and college basketball, NHL, and UFC. So head to BetOnline today. And don't forget to use the brand new promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. Back to the weekly decisions. Lauri Markkanen. Obviously, we'll get some more information today. They play in Sacramento later on. They only have a 1-game week. I know it's all the way down till Friday, so he probably ends up playing in it. But a 1-game week that could be a 0, can't do it. Can't do it. Joel Embiid is an interesting one because it seems like he's going to play today. We don't have the... We don't have a final report on that, but it seems like it. But there's a minutes cap, and then who knows if he plays this coming week. It's only a 1-gamer, so we're close, but I think I would hold him out. Even if he plays on Sunday, I think I would hold him out. Brandon Ingram, I'm going to rest. He left their last ball game early. That's never a great sign. I know they got a 2-game week, and 2-gamers are hard to come by, but I would rest him. You don't want to take that shot. Andrew Wiggins, questionable. I forgot what his latest report was there, so I just flipped it up on the screen real fast. If he's in, obviously he's a go. They have a 2-game week, so it'd be nice to be able to get 2 games out of him. If he doesn't play on Sunday, you probably rest him. Nick Richards, I don't think I'm going to take a chance on that. They've only got a 1-game week, so there's no reason to go down that path. Aaron Gordon, I'm not going to do it. I don't know what the deal is there. Miles Bridges, no, not until we see him play. Austin Reeves, it's a 2-game week, and hopefully he'll be back, but you can't take that risk unless he plays on Sunday, but he was doubtful last I checked, so I don't think that's happening. And now we're in the zone of, like, if anybody's even remotely close to a game time call, you are sitting them, and those are your weekly decisions to make. Now the part of the show that everybody tolerates? I was going to say enjoys, but I can't speak to that. This is your streaming grid for week 8. I'm going to do my best to make it as large as I can on your YouTube screen without blocking anything out. That means I have to move my face down into the corner. I think I can make this full screen, so that'll be a little bit better. Okay, Google Sheets, you can get rid of that press escape dialogue. Dismiss. There we go. I'll dismiss it so you guys don't have to look at it. All right, so this is what week 8 looks like, and I'll leave Sunday visible just at the front end. You can also see most of week 9 with the medium Monday and then 2 days of no games that count. There is obviously the NBA Cup Finals in there, but that game doesn't count for fantasy, and then it bounces into some like high-low traffic days on week 9. Week 8, however, the one we're focused on right now, is obscenely quiet. Obscenely quiet. It's a 25-game week total. That's the kind of number that we often see in 2 heavy days on a normal week. I mean, you can see it in week 9. They knocked that out on Thursday and Saturday. and then there's another dozen. And that's a week there were 2 days there aren't any games happening. Everything about week 8 screams horrifying. On the left column, and again, I'll mention this to everybody once per weekly preview, you probably want to navigate into the Google Sheet that's linked in the show description. It's, I forget exactly how I wrote it up, but it basically just says, like, this is my mega Google Sheet. It has all my stuff. The streaming calendar 2024 is the tab you'll want to navigate to. And then you can follow along. If you're listening after the fact, you can follow along without seeing it. If you're on YouTube, you can have your own tab open where you're sort of flip-flopping around. This one is a very visual element, and I hope you guys will sort of accompany us on that journey. What I normally do, just to get into the schematics here, and you guys know this by now, what I normally do is I start with problems, and then I try to solve them. But there are countless problems this coming week. And you can see I've color-coded the teams that have what I'd call, quote-unquote, bad schedules, but, like, who doesn't? So this might be the rare week where you almost want to start with the good and see if you can seek that out. But just very quickly, Brooklyn is off until Friday, 1 game. Same with Charlotte, Chicago, and Cleveland, and Denver. Detroit is off with 1 game on Thursday. Not that that makes that big of a difference, but at least it opens up some other teams that play Friday and Sunday. So just something to kind of keep in the back of your head. The Clippers are off all the way until a 1-gamer on Friday, just like some of those others, as is Philadelphia. Sacramento is more like, who the hell did we just say? Detroit, that has a game on Thursday. And Utah is off all the way until Friday. So basically the 1-gamer weeks, those are all the teams that have 1 game this week, are either playing their 1 game on Thursday or Friday. The teams that play their 1 game on Friday are the worst of the 2 options. Because if you have those players, you're sitting on 4 days off. And then if you let them play their game on Friday, it's too late for you to do much of anything else. Because nobody goes back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. There are going to be 2 games on Saturday. We don't know who the 2 teams or the 4 teams are that are going to be playing in those. There will be 7 on Sunday, and we don't know 4 of the 14 teams that are playing on Sunday yet. So you can't even really grade out what you're doing at the end of the week because we still don't know the order of the NBA Cup teams. We know who could play on those days, but it's going to be who comes out of the games on Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay. So what do you do if you have, say, a Brooklyn Net that you probably should have done something about ages ago because they had 3 days off this week, then a game today, Sunday, and then another 4 days off. They had 1 game over 8 days. They had the worst schedule. But let's say that you didn't do anything with your Brooklyn Nets, and now you're thinking about doing something on Monday or any of these other teams that I just mentioned that are off all the way until Friday. There's 2 teams, 1 game on Monday, New York and Toronto. I don't know how the hell this happened, but it did. It's the weirdest damn thing. It almost feels like there was a mistake. I'm like trying to think back about any game that got canceled or postponed. But I don't think that happened unless I'm flat out forgetting something. So this is just like a weird scheduling anomaly. The Knicks have the best schedule of the week. They play Monday, and then they have 2 NBA Cup games later in the week. They're the only team in the NBA that's going to play 3 times in week 8. So if you can, try to pivot from one of these teams that's off basically the entire week with only 1 game to a New York Knicks. It's the only team you could move to where you'd get a 2-game bounce over the team you are leaving. So if you have a Brooklyn Net, some streamer level net like a Zaire Williams or a Trendon Watford or something like that, see if you can get a Precious Achiuwa or a Miles McBride or, I don't know, did Campaign play in their game on Saturday? I don't think he did. Did he? Let's double check ourselves. Yeah, no, he wasn't in that one. Cat was out. Jericho Sims got the start, but it didn't matter. Yeah, I mean, Precious and McBride are the 2 guys that you'd look at. So if those dudes aren't rostered yet, that's the direction you want to move on Monday. Those 2 players. And then if we happen to get some good Cameron Payne news, that would be the other spot. Otherwise, you're stuck basically adding 1 game for the duration of the week or kind of like doubling up on your moves throughout the week. So obviously, New York is the best team to start the week, but they're not the only decent team at the front end. Teams that play in NBA Cup games on Tuesday are not terrible decisions because they'll have another game on either Saturday or Sunday. Dallas plays on Tuesday. Milwaukee plays on Tuesday. Oklahoma City and Orlando play on Tuesday. Those are not bad options if you wanted to pivot again off of one of those teams that only has one game. Then you're adding a game and you can hold that player throughout the entire week. That's a win by all accounts. Because let's say you have a Brooklyn Net and you wanted to switch to somebody else that has 2 games. Most of those other teams, not all of them, but most are Friday, Sunday, the 2 gamers. And you can look at the calendar with this one as well. At least not like NBA Cup. NBA Cup are your choices, or non-NBA Cup teams that typically go Friday, Sunday. So in those, you wouldn't actually get a bounce in that first week. So if you can, the thought would be here, take a team that has 1 game and switch them to an NBA Cup team that has 2. Because you get off of, you immediately dodge the possibility that you're moving from a 1 game on Friday to a 2 gamer that also has a game on Friday. Not that that's like a big deal, but like you're not actually, you're just getting that 1 extra game on Sunday, so it doesn't really change much. Now, at the same time, like just to backtrack a tiny bit, I'm sort of getting my mouth ahead of my brain here. Streaming is equal parts important and really simplistic this week, if that makes sense. Like, there are no overload days, so it's not like you could accidentally land on a player that you can't use on a given day, so that's not a problem. There are no 0 days, so there are always possibilities to move to a player that's on a given day. So then you kind of have to decide how many slots you want to stream. I'm in favor typically of streaming half the number of slots as weekly moves you have in your head-to-head league. So if you have a 4 weekly move league, I would stream 2 roster slots and just assume you're using 2 moves on each of them. Okay, well, that actually makes things a little bit easier because let's say you're on Brooklyn and you want to get to New York. If you can get to a Knick from a 1-game week to a 3-game week, that's the only move you need to make the entire week. You don't need to use another one. That's great. You get a 2-game bump. Awesome. Now you can stream 3 roster slots that week. But if you can't get a Knick and your best option is to go from a 1-game week to a 2-game week, you can kind of grade out where you want those games to happen. The problem with going to a team where you already know where their games are going to be in a 2-game week is that they all have their second game on Sunday. Every single one of them, because the NBA Cup is Saturday. And some NBA Cup games are Sunday. So what you need to do is, if you wanted to use 2 moves on a single roster slot, you're looking for an NBA Cup team that will play their second game on Saturday, and then you can use another move to add 1 more game on Sunday. So you'll want to look up the NBA Cup schedule, find out, which bracket is going when, and that's how you make your decision. All right, let's just rethink the way we're approaching this. The teams that win, this is what we know. The teams that win their NBA Cup games on Tuesday and Wednesday will play Saturday. That's the important part. It's not like they're mixing and matching here, and I probably should have gone back and started with that. The teams that lose their NBA Cup games play on Sunday. So by the end of action on Wednesday, you will know who's playing on Saturday and who's playing on Sunday. We can't know that right now. So I guess, okay, does that complicate things a tiny bit? Yeah, I guess, but we can work with that. So again, now if you're thinking about using 2 roster moves on 1 slot on your team, and again, let's just say you're starting with like a Charlotte Hornet that has 1 game this week, you can go for an NBA Cup team and pick the one you think is more likely to win. That's probably the way you angle it. Okay, I'm going to pick I don't know. Dallas is in Oklahoma City. I guess that could go either way. Milwaukee, Orlando. Orlando's down Franz and Paolo. So I would, if I'm thinking about a Tuesday winners, Milwaukee is probably your safest bet. And if you're looking at Wednesday winners, Atlanta's going to be in New York and Houston, Golden State. I don't know what the hell is going to happen in those. The New York one might come down to whether Cat's in. Golden State's been slumping. Houston is down Tari Eason, so they're not quite as strong right now. I mean, you could go home road, I guess. Houston has a home game there. Milwaukee is also a home game. So maybe the plan is go Houston and Milwaukee in your other possible streamers and hope that then they win, and then you get to hold them through Saturday and then pivot off of them on Sunday. But that's really all you can do if you want to try to use two moves on the same and also hold them to the end. The other possibility is if you are 100% married to using two moves per roster slot and you're comfortable using them up early in the week. Now, this could be problematic because if somebody gets hurt on your team, you're not going to have any moves left to get rid of them. The easiest way with the greatest risk, it's the easiest, but it has the greatest risk, is to use a move on, well, again, assuming you can't get your hand on any New York Knicks. If you can get your hand on New York Knicks, awesome. Your week is already set. If you can't get a Knick on your team, go with someone playing on Tuesday, preferably Milwaukee, because it seems like they have the best opportunity to win their game. They're playing a beat-down Orlando team right now. And if they win, great. You can hold that Milwaukee player all the way through Saturday when they'll play again, and then make your next move on Sunday. It's always good to go on Sunday because you'll know what categories you need, and you can also set yourself up for the following week pretty nicely as well. If you go Milwaukee and they somehow manage to lose that ball game, you can either hold all the way through Saturday or you can try again. Right? You could pick up anybody that you know is going to have two games the rest of the way at that point. You could do it on Wednesday. You could do it on Thursday because Boston goes Thursday, Sunday. New Orleans goes Thursday, Sunday, and then a whole host of teams goes Friday, Sunday. So you could use your second move on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. You wouldn't have any moves left on Sunday. You'd be done by Friday at the latest, earliest Wednesday, depending on like what team you thought had two games left and was the best streaming option for your club. But that is the easiest way to stream this coming week with, of course, the greatest amount of risk. Again, someone getting hurt. You've used all your moves by Thursday. Now you're taking zeros. That's worse. But that's the easiest. Try to find a New York Knick. If you can't do that, use two moves on Tuesday and pick games from an NBA Cup team that you think has a good chance to win, because that'll allow you to save your moves until Sunday. And if it doesn't work, you use a replaceo move on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And that, to me, is the best way to stream this coming week. That's the way that gives you an opportunity to max out your games. One game added per move that's not to a New York Knick. That's a big deal. You got to make sure that you're adding a move for the duration of the week with every move you make this week. You can't be doing one where you move laterally. Games are way too important. Again, it's a 25-game week, meaning odds are if you go through and look at how many games your team is going to play this coming week, and again, this has to do largely with it being its own monster. If it was a part of week 7, then your choice is clear. You're just trying to get New York Knicks immediately. And if you don't, you probably try to save your moves towards the end of the week. Use them on Friday to get, 2 games over the last couple of days. That's easy if you had a week 7 because you probably don't have most of your weekly moves left anyway. But it's so important if this is its own week for you. I realize I didn't talk much about what if this is just the second half of period 7 on Yahoo. But again, I assume you've probably used 1 or 2 moves during the first 7 days of this period. And so the second half, you try to get to New York Knicks because that'll add a bunch of games to your ledger. But if you have a team that's playing twice this week already, you're probably kind of fine to just stick with it. You mostly just want to see if you have any streamer level guys that only have 1 game this coming week. Those are the guys you would think about moving off of, but try to do it later in the week. Simple as that. You don't want to blow all your moves on Monday and be cooked for 6 days. If you can save them till Thursday or Friday, at least that takes some of that risk out. That's why I didn't get into the whole, like, what do you do if this is the second half thing? You don't have that many choices there. But if this is its own week for you, that's the pathway, because then maximizing games is so critical. I don't know how many games your team is expected to play this week, but it ain't going to be that much. You can go and look it up right now while we're doing a show. I'm guessing it's a relatively low number. I know that disappointing. I get it. But that's just the way it is. Like, you set your lineups. I don't know. I don't know what the average number of games played is in a week with 25 games. It's probably 20 something. If you go from like 22 to 26 or 27, that's massive. Think about the advantage you have over your opponent. We're talking 20, 25% more games if you stream right. So it's a super important week to max out games, even if the players don't look like they're putting up good stats. And it's also a really difficult week to get good options, because the Knicks are the only team that everybody's going to be hunting on Monday morning. Wake up at 12:01 a.m. and get it done. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Dan Besbris for Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Make sure to check out that attached Google Sheet. That thing's going to be your weapon in all of this stuff. Follow on Twitter at Dan Besbris. Old Man Squad on Blue Sky. Hit that subscribe button before you leave. We've actually seen really good YouTube and podcast growth over the last like 3 or 4 days. So whatever we're doing, something's working a little bit better right now. And thank you all for all the comments, all the likes, all the shares, all that good stuff. We're just going to keep trying to grow this monster, and we're going to do it totally free as long as humanly possible until I'm in the poorhouse, and then we'll rethink things. Again, good luck this week. We'll talk about it all throughout. Have a nice weekend recap show coming up first thing on Monday morning, and we'll talk a little bit about buy low and sell high, because there aren't that many games early in the week, and can't do a half an hour pod where we recap one game, can we? Challenge accepted. All right, later, everybody.